Hello, everyone. My name is Rajesh Krishnan with Synack in the marketing group, and I have the privilege of working for marketing with the Synack Red team. So today, I've got a very interesting set of speakers for us. It is for an event we're calling the Ages of Hacking. And today, we've got Devesh Bhatt. Say hi, Devesh.
Hi, everyone.
And we've got Michael Hughes with us today, and we'll introduce them in a moment. Hey, Michael.
Hi, guys.
So what's really interesting about these two gents is what we have actually is a person who's been hacking on Synack since our very first year. And we've got Hughesy as well, so who has been one of the newer members here. So I want to talk a little bit about ethical hacking, bug bounty, and then just what some of the differences have been from the Synack founding era, which is 2012, 2013, and now, almost 10 years later after this world got started. So first, a little bit about Devesh. So he's been focusing on the application security domain, including some many great hacks that we've seen over the years in application, network, mobile, IoT security. He's been in more Hall of Fames than he's got fingers and toes on his body, which is quite an accomplishment. And you can also see him speaking at numerous events around the world, including conferences such as RSA, RIBCon, Confidence, and others as well. So thanks for joining us today, Devesh. Also, we have Michael Hughes. He also specializes in offensive security, and he has been someone who joined the Synack platform about 2 years ago. So we watched with great interest as he's become more and more successful, and with the great hacks that he has brought to protect Synack customers over the years. He had founded the open source intelligence platform viewdns.info, which is used by many of the SRT as well, and along their activities for finding great security vulnerabilities. And he started years later than Devesh, and so has a more recent perspective on this, including being top 10 in rankings on multiple platforms, including Synack. He's too modest to mention this, but I will also note that he is the reigning Rookie of the Year on Synack, and you can find him on acropolis.synack.com. So with that, let's talk a little bit about the hacking itself. So how did you actually get started hacking? Why don't we start with you, Devesh?
Yeah, hi. So hi, everyone. Thanks for having me here. So I started with my first job in security way back in 2007. And at that time, bug bounty scene was not pretty mature. And as I progressed through my projects with the companies and then started loving this more, I came across this first bug bounty challenge in Google, wherein I was rewarded for one of the critical account takeovers. So that was my first Hall of Fame. And after that, it was the lure for Facebook's debit card, which got me into the game because I wanted to have that debit card, that card with the name on it, right? So that's what lured me. That's from then. It's been like multiple individual Hall of Fames that gets you going, and then later on, all these companies with managed programs came into existence, and that's how it started. And if particularly you have to ask me about how the Synack journey started, so I was also doing some freelancing projects, and that's wherein Mark reached out to me and wanted me to
That would
test.
be Mark Kaur, the CTO of Synack.
Yes.
And co-founder.
Yes, and the co-founder, yeah. He wanted me to test the platform itself. So like I tested for 8 hours and got some vulnerabilities which were like severe. And then at that point in time, Mark offered me to like be a permanent member and a SRT in the platform. And that's how it started. And me, along with a couple of more folks there, were having fun initially with lesser crowd, right? So, and the first vulnerability there as well is it was account takeover, and within like few seconds I was awarded the reward. So that was pretty cool.
Fantastic. I remember speaking with Mark, and we were looking for some people who had been hacking for a bit, and you're the first person who came to mind. So thank you for your service to our customers over the years, and thank you for those great stories.
Thank you.
How about you, Michael? Tell us about how you got started in hacking.
I started hacking at about the same time as Devesh in 2008. I came out of uni, did a few years as sysadmin, and then took on a technology graduate program with one of the financial institutions here in Australia. Out of sheer coincidence, one of my tasks was to organize a penetration test for one of the projects that I was working on. I didn't really know what that was at the time, but after engaging the organization's penetration testers, I realized that there's actually a job out there to break things. So these guys do this full time all day just to break things. I didn't even have to worry about fixing it. So that was very interesting for me. So I started then in the penetration testing team with that organization. Spent 13 years there. How I got into bug bounties whilst I was there, a security researcher contacted our SOC department with a list of vulnerabilities that they'd found in an asset owned by the organization. At the end of the day, that researcher got paid quite a hefty sum. They did pay them, which was good. We did encourage them as well as part of the penetration testing team to reward the researchers. The amount that they got paid was equivalent to a couple of months worth of salary for me. So I thought, I've got to get on board and get a piece of this. So that's when I sort of started my bug bounty journey.
That's great. With the sysadmin background plus seeing the pen testing, that's a good broad background, I think, for what you ended up doing. Okay. So was it a good interaction with that person who'd submitted those vulnerabilities?
Look, I won't say their approach was the approach that I would have taken.
I see.
Yeah, there were some sort of talks about going to Twitter instead of disclosing them to us.
Okay.
But no, look, we did work with the researcher, and the outcome was, I think, what everyone wanted. So that was good.
What are some of the changes that are making things easier or harder for hackers? So you're finding, and this is a question for Devesh and for Hughesy, have you found that the industry has created more opportunities for people to report security vulnerabilities, or is it still hard to report them in many cases? Yeah,
I think from my point of view, maybe one of the reasons I didn't start in bug bounties as early as other people was, while there were, Facebook and Google had their sort of reporting channels, it wasn't really transparent in the process. You'd read a few blog articles about people who'd submitted vulnerabilities and been rewarded, and that was encouraging, but I guess there was no guarantee that you were going to get rewarded for your time. So I think that, more recently with the platforms, it's made it a little bit easier for researchers to, ensure that, if they do the work, find the vulnerabilities, they're going to get rewarded for it. And obviously some platforms have different approaches to doing this and some are better than others, but I think overall it is a lot more accessible to security researchers now.
And Devesh, was that the case for you? Were you concerned about submitting vulnerabilities that were acted upon? Or were you concerned about vulnerabilities just sitting around if you put the work into them in the earliest days for you?
Yeah, so I also have the similar thought process. I mean, obviously the transparency has increased, I would say 100-fold. And that encourages the researchers to participate more, right? Because you get rewarded for your time, and then your time is valued. Plus, I think it has become more planned now. I mean, there's a formal process, and then you get there's a turnaround time, and then you get a response within X amount of time and things like that. So all those things have changed. But I see that competition has increased also. I mean, there are many people who are getting to the game now. So though we have a lot of takers as well, I mean, a lot of companies are going this way, wherein they want hackers to explore the vulnerabilities in their applications. But researchers have also increased. So I think it's going in a more organized direction, but obviously the competition has increased as well.
So, we talked about this a little bit for how is bug bounty different from sort of the earlier days to here in 2021.
I think a couple of things are similar that are coming to my mind in terms of being more organized now. So it's not just the turnaround time, but say rewards associated with a particular bug and things like that are more organized now. So there's a market cap and value that is being discussed across, right, different platforms, and researchers are aware that okay, this much should be awarded for this kind of vulnerability, right? But earlier days there was nothing like that, and there were like pros and cons to those to that structure, right? Because it used to depend on the perspective of the person who is rewarding, because some bit of risk rating when you arrive at a particular risk rating is also is also having the subjective part to it, right? How the person is perceiving it while you are writing the risk associated with it. So all those things, again, coming back to that point, is more organized, and the participation has become much easier now. I would say,
In what
because
way is it easier? Is it easier to get started, or is it the process?
I mean, there's a lot of knowledge that is floating around. If you just see a lot of channels in YouTube and other things, right? So back in those days, uh, you were not having those many resources as we have today, right? So there are formal courses for bug bounties and stuff, right? And people can follow that tactic. And if I talk about one of my talks, which I have also, which you have also listed in my bio, right? So back in those days, I was talking about my methodology of approaching a target. So those talks were getting accepted across, right? So at that time there was a need for such a uh, s- such a talk wherein someone can come in and talk about how to approach a target, right? So but now if I talk about these things, it'll never be uh, accepted in any of those
I
conferences,
see.
right? Because that has become way forward in terms of what people are doing now versus earlier days, right? So all in all, I think it's more streamlined, more
Mm-hmm.
organized, more challenging, lot of competition, and lot of scope for
I see.
everyone to fit in. Yeah.
Okay. Michael, you're finding that the knowledge base that's one of the things that Devesh has mentioned. How do you find the knowledge base having changed over time for bug bounty?
Yeah, I think definitely there's a lot more information out there. Even before I was actively participating in any bug bounty platform or program, would always enjoy reading the stories about the good findings, the good vulnerabilities that have been disclosed and fixed. And I think that does kind of entice people onto the platforms and into starting bug bounty hunting, because A, it's interesting work if you're from that background, and B, there is opportunity there for skilled hackers to make decent money out of it. I think purely in the time that I've actually been on actively participating in bug bounties, I think, as Devesh said, the competition has definitely increased. There's a lot more people taking it up. There's definitely a lot more and a wider variety of organizations that are signing up to be tested using bug bounties as well, though. So I think it kind of balances out that there's still a lot of opportunities. And I think there's definitely still a lot of opportunities for skilled hackers, especially. I think a lot of there are a lot of people coming in that are sort of running vulnerability scanners or automated tools. But I think there's definitely still room for skilled hackers to make their name in bug bounties.
I see. So are you finding, when you're talking about methodologies, are you finding the methodologies are converging, that there's common wisdom that you do it this way, or are they diverging? Are there lots and lots of different ways people are approaching this?
I think, as far as methodologies and tool sets, I think most people will have, at least a common set of tools and methodologies that they'll use. Whether it's for identifying subdomains on a host, for example, or trying to find directories on a web application. There's powerful tools out there, and in a lot of cases, there's no point reinventing the wheel. They do a good job. But I think that, experience does sort of help guide skilled hackers to where the vulnerabilities might be, rather than just purely pointing the tools at it, clicking go, and hoping something comes out.
Okay. Well, we also wanted to mix this up a little bit. So we're also, in between questions, we're also going to ask you questions since you've seen, collectively, 20, 25 years of the history of ethical hacking. We thought we would ask you a few questions from the history of ethical hacking. So let me pull up question number 1 for us here. So, all right. So hacker trivia, number 1. In 1995, this tech company launched what many consider to be the first bug bounty program. It's still around. This is a company that is a open source company, and one of their main products it focuses on browser technology.
Firefox, Mozilla, or Netscape.
Mozilla?
Yeah, we'll go with.
All right, let's give them both.
Okay.
Let's give them both the points, Jennifer. Yes, that is Mozilla. It is. There's different ways to consider what was the first bug bounty program, but Mozilla is certainly one that has been around for quite a bit of time. It is one that gets mentioned frequently in annals of history. So we're going to give it to them. I think historical records are murky from this period, but I also like just getting some points on the board here. So, all right, it's tied, 1 point each. Very good. Let us continue with our next question. So, what would surprise people about what you do, what ethical hackers, what people in the bug bounty field do? I would believe that 9 out of 10 people in security wouldn't know what that is, and that means 99 out of 100 people wouldn't have a clue. What would surprise people when you have cocktail conversations, meeting new people, or what would surprise people about what actually happens? I want to start with Michael.
I think what would surprise people is that there's actually a job where you get paid to break things, and it's not your responsibility necessarily to fix them afterwards. I know that's what I found very interesting when I first engaged with the penetration testing team. I think that something else that surprises people is, I guess, or would surprise people, is the severity of some of the things that are found. Obviously, it doesn't get disclosed, or in most cases, it doesn't get disclosed. But just, the severity and the impacts that could be caused if some of the things that were found had been abused by someone that had more of a malicious intent, that would really open people's eyes a little bit, I think, into the value of what we do.
And Devesh, what surprises people when they learn about ethical hacking?
Ethical hackers, you mean, right? So, on the fun side, I would say that ethical hackers do sleep a lot. So that would surprise people, right? Because they think that mostly it's like a night job. And they are fun people to hang around with, and they do have social life. So
absolutely. Is there anything that would surprise people in security about ethical hacking? So people who might be considering adding ethical hacking to their security portfolio. Anything that would surprise a CISO about this, for example?
I would not say anything surprising as such, but it is well-known fact that it's a research field, right? So, and I would not consider it as a surprising element, because when you are planning to get into the field, I think you should be aware of what you are getting into. So it looks more than what it is. I mean, it would feel that, okay, bug bounty is just about finding vulnerabilities and stuff, but you have to like be on toes and read a lot. So again, that's not surprising element, as I mentioned, right? Because it is a well-known fact, but it is a lot more than what is perceived.
I see.
Yeah, I agree. I think that someone from a different area or department in an organization in security. They might see ethical hacking or penetration testing or bug bounty hunting as something fun and interesting, but I think what might surprise them is the amount of sort of knowledge and research that is required to actually be successful at it. You can't really just come in with experience on only ever used a Mac, never used Windows or Linux, vice versa. You really do need to either understand how technology works at its fundamental level or be prepared to learn before you can really be any good at trying to break it, really.
So with that, let us jump over back to our questions here. So question 2. Phone to Own is a computer hacking contest held regularly, and there's 1 point for each of these answers. In what city was the first Phone to Own? And it was part of what security conference? What city? What security conference?
Vancouver of CanSec West.
Vancouver, CanSec West. Okay. Devesh?
Not really sure. So I'll go with Vegas, because most of the security conferences happen. It's a wild guess again, right? And,
all right. The answer. The answer is Vancouver, CanSec West. It is now in multiple cities. Other places, it's not as held annually. So So Michael with 2 points for his knowledge of Phone to Own, and then for that. Let's take a quick look at the scoreboard here. So a total of 3 points for Hughesy and 1 for Devesh. So what were some signs that for yourselves or for hackers that that they were good enough to kind of keep going and really do this with a large portion of their time? I'll start, Devesh. I mean, you're in India, which is by all league tables, it's the number 1 or number 2 place for ethical hackers, just by the number of hackers there. You're very active in the community. When you meet someone who might be considering going into ethical hacking with more of their time, what's the evidence that they're able to kind of do this?
Yeah, so I think for me, even for say my team, in my day job, right? If I interview someone, the most important thing that I look for is the curiosity and the curious mindset, right? Because as Michael mentioned, right? So there are a number of things. It's not just like about knowing Mac or Linux or Windows, right? You have to be good at multiple things. So, and I do understand that it's a never-ending technology world, right? So no one can be good at everything, and interviews would not do justice to it. So I think a curious mind, a mind which can like learn and adapt to changes quickly, right? So those things, if someone possesses, I think he or she can be a good ethical hacker.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I agree with Devesh in terms of the curiosity is definitely something you need. You need to want to learn how things work. A new technology that you've never seen before can't be something that scares you. It needs to be something that you get excited about learning about. I think in terms of coming from a penetration testing background, a couple of things that would maybe indicate that you would do well at bug bounties and ethical hacking would be, if you've ever tested a system or looked at an application and get the feedback afterwards that, wow, these are good findings. We've had this application tested before, and this is new for us. So that's a good sign that you're able to find things that others can't. As well as if you've ever done a test and the first 24 hours you find a raft of vulnerabilities. The rest of the time you're not necessarily finding anything. That can sort of generally indicate that you're kind of gravitating towards the areas where from experience there's going to be vulnerabilities located. And I think that kind of experience and knowing where to look is something that's very valuable in ethical hacking.
So then your scenario is actually a very interesting one, where you find significant vulnerabilities in the first 24 hours, but they petered out. is there room for specialists in the world of bug bounty, or is it necessary to be kind of skilled in multiple areas?
I think just by the nature of bug bounties, you need to be cross-skilled in all different areas, especially if you wanted to do it full time. Maybe in the future there's going to be, more of a need for specialists in certain technologies. But I think until customers come to the platforms, knowing that they're going to get those specialists, it's kind of a chicken and egg scenario of the market versus the people actually delivering it. I think that most of those companies will, stick to consulting firms or hiring in specialists rather than the platforms themselves.
Devesh, have you run into many specialists along the way in this area? So someone who may only be good at, say, finding cross-site scripting or good at IoT only, or some other very narrow area within security?
Yeah, we do come across. I mean, and we all would agree, right? So even deep down within ourselves, there's a specific kind or an area that we are good at, right? So, and I have seen people who are like masters at one thing, say bypassing, say, accesses or finding SQL injections, but they may not be able to like even a routine stuff on other vulnerabilities, right? So we do, definitely come across people having specific skill set, and I agree that's not bad at all, right? So if you are good at something, I think there's definitely a room. There's a room for scope and learning other skill set, right? And that's how bug bounty is good for our clients, because we get so many different skilled people together on one target, so that, right, someone is good in finding, say, accesses or SQL injection, and others are doing like logical vulnerabilities and things like that. So that's the beauty of bug bounty programs.
All right. Final question. The term bug in computer science was introduced during work on the Mark II computer, which was built for the U.S. Navy. That is, by all historical records, the bug. That was the first bug ever in computer science. Let's give 3 points out for this one. What was the year that this happened? And then we're going to give points for it being closer than your opponent on the year. And then what educational institution hosted the work? So there's 3 points up for grabs here. Why don't we go with, let's go with Devesh first. Let's use the answer to the last one first. So take a look at that piece of paper and take a guess on what year that came about.
1970, probably.
Okay.
I'll go
and then
with,
you want to guess which education institution?
MIT. These are wild guesses.
Sounds good. All right, sounds good.
I'll go with 1965, just a guess. I'll say MIT as well.
All righty. Well, okay, so this is the Mark II computer, which is mostly famous in computer history for where Grace Hopper made her claim to fame as a naval officer. The Mark II was built in 1947, a little after World War II. So these computers couldn't do much. They weighed tons. They could barely do what a graphing calculator couldn't do what a graphing calculator could do. They could do a little bit more than kind of straight multiplication division. And this happened very close. MIT was a good guess. It happened at Harvard. So for those keeping score at home, that is going to be 1 point for Michael. And that's the only point awarded this time. So let's just jump over to our scoreboard here for a total. So there you go. Bragging rights are going to go to you, Hughesy, for 4 points. So thank you for playing in that particular one. Let's go jump back into our last question of the day, which is just kind of a prediction question. So the next year in the world of ethical hacking, you've seen so much changes, from introduction of platforms to new IoT hacking to live hacking. You've seen so much in the history of this industry, and it is becoming an industry. What's something that might happen in the next year that wouldn't surprise you?
I'll take that first. So
Okay.
I see now with so much advancement and multiple companies coming in and a lot of research work going along, right? So it's time
Mhm.
for being mature at bug bounty programs, right? So I see something which is like bug bounty maturity model, which I
Mhm.
see a lot of companies opting for it going forward. Like, say for example, if you are doing n number of things, or say uh, you have a mature program, you respond within this amount of time, you award this much. So there has to be a checklist like that, wherein a particular company doing say 10 out of 20 will be at a certain level of maturity, rather than other companies which are doing like all 20 in that checklist. So a kind of maturity model is what I predict going forward.
Okay. Do you feel that many companies are in the early or the later phases of that maturity model?
Uh, I think it will be a mix of it, uh,
Okay.
uh, and there'll be few who will be just which will be just starting out, and there'll be many companies at the end, or towards the end of the maturity model. So I think it will be totally a mix of things.
Okay. Maturity models. Okay. So we'll keep an eye on that for the rest of 2021. How about you, Michael?
I think that more and more companies will look to bug bounty platforms to do more than just your typical, vulnerability assessments of applications or infrastructure. I think that there's either an opportunity, and that potentially we'll see it in the next year, where bug bounty platforms will be asked to do more of like a compliance style of testing. So, here's a new application that's been stood up. We'd like the bug bounty platform to come in and, mission style testing, come in and go, okay, for this application and this AWS account, are any of the S3 buckets public? So rather than going and, checking for vulnerabilities, it would just be, looking to the platforms and the SRT or the researchers to actually go through and complete that compliance checklist, rather than having their own permanent staff do it.
Okay. The researchers providing that initial compliance analysis for the security readiness of applications. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, these are two great predictions we can go look at in a year's time. So we'll go keep track of those, and then go back and I'll find you in a year and then see how we did on those. So with that, I want to thank everybody. I want to thank Devesh Bhatt. I want to thank Michael Hughes and for participating in this discussion about the ages of bug bounty and participating in our game show as well. So thanks so much, everyone, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for
Thank
Jess.
you.